to throw chairs at one another and determine paternity. Piers Morgan, who has sort of made a mockery of the entire industry by putting on screen whatever dregs are still willing to go on screen with Piers Morgan.
You're only criticized by one side because you choose to air only one side and you choose to ignore or even silence the other. I'm a journalist. You are a propagandist. Oh, and facts don't care about your feelings.
Cenk, it turns out that Ben Shapiro is anti-Semitic. He has a huge problem with Piers Morgan inviting Dave Smith, who is Jewish, onto his program to share the anti-Israel perspective. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so that's why we told you all along, this has nothing to do with Jewish Americans. So this has to do with people who are loyal to Israel. That is a different category. Yes, it has some Jewish Americans like Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin, Mark Levin, etc. But it also has plenty of Christians like Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz. So it's just a matter of who you're loyal to. And now Piers Morgan is beginning to realize, oh, turns out Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin are only loyal to Israel. I know, color me shocked, but let's give you the details of his awakening.
In fact, Piers Morgan had the legendary Jeffrey Sachs on his program today. And Jeffrey Sachs is also highly critical of Israel, used to live in Israel, and also happens to be Jewish himself. So you're absolutely right to point out that criticism of Israel is not about criticizing Judaism or Jewish people. It's about criticizing a foreign country that has carried out a genocide and keeps dragging the United States into wars we should not be involved in. Now, Shapiro was criticizing Morgan for inviting Dave Smith and other critics of Israel onto his program. Now, Smith is a harsh critic of the Israeli government. But at no point have I ever heard any of his commentary go in the direction of hatred toward Jewish people, or more importantly, hatred toward America, which is what Ben Shapiro accuses Dave Smith of engaging in. Yeah. But Morgan brings on plenty of pro-Israel guests as well. And you know what, Cenk, I want to give our side a lot of credit because I don't bother Piers Morgan about having pro-Israel voices on, and neither do you. I mean, I did bring up Alan Dershowitz and how, there are some problems with him, right? But other than that, pro-Israel perspective is a valid perspective that should be debated, right? But when it comes to Ben Shapiro, the anti-Israel perspective, not allowed. Take a look.
Well, on the subject of Iran and US foreign policy specifically, recent guests have included Masih Alinejad, Lisa Daftari, Patrick Bet-David, Carla Sands, Rob O'Neill, Goldie Gamari, Jonathan Conricus, Alan Dershowitz, Alika Lebon, Ambassador John Bolton, General Wesley Clark, General Mark Kimmett, a former UN prosecutor accusing Iran of mass murder, Ambassador Mike Huckabee, former Vice President Mike Pence, Eric Weinstein, Josh Hammer, former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, and the IDF spokesman Nadav Shoshani. Now, it's unlikely that Ben is talking about any of these people because they are either vehemently pro-Israel or to some extent they are supportive of attacking Iran to destroy its regime. So what is he really talking about? Well, we know he doesn't like Dave Smith and flat out refuses to debate him, which strikes me as pretty cowardly. You can make up your own minds about why he refuses. And what Ben really takes issue with is that among the many guests supporting his worldview, and specifically supporting Israel, we also invite many people who don't support his worldview and don't support the Israeli government.
Now, I think Piers Morgan makes a really great point about Ben Shapiro's unwillingness to debate someone like Dave Smith. It is interesting that he's quick to debate like a pink-haired college student in their freshman year on culture war issues. But when it comes to someone who's well-read on the issue of Israel, someone like Dave Smith, Ben Shapiro refuses to engage in any debate with them. And it's not just Dave Smith, anyone in holding the position we hold, Cenk. Have you seen Ben Shapiro have a single debate with anyone with our position ever? Not once.
No, because he's smart enough to know that he can't possibly win that debate. And especially against Dave Smith, because Ben Shapiro and so many of all of Israel First is a one-trick pony. All they have is anti-Semite, I cancel you, you're not allowed to talk, right? And that's literally what he's trying to do in mass with Piers here. First, he's trying to pressure Piers Morgan, do not let the other side even talk. Don't let them on. I have deemed them anti-Semites. They should be banished, right? And now when that didn't work, he's like, why wouldn't I have both sides on? And if your side is so smart and good and right, then you'll easily win, right? So now they've switched to banish Piers Morgan entirely. He shall now henceforth be canceled. Hey, it doesn't work that way anymore. That's what you used to with, you just call Jake Tapper, you'd call CNN and you go, hey, get him off the air. And Jake would be like, right away, sir. Absolutely, Ben Shapiro and Israel. Of course, sir. You are all canceled, you anti-Semites, right? But now you can't do that with our show, with Tucker Carlson, with Piers Morgan, with Megyn Kelly. And it's driving them crazy.
I love it so much.
Yes.
I love it so much. It's one of the best developments in media. And by the way, I mean, it makes Piers Morgan's show interesting to watch, right? Especially if you don't know where you land on a particular debate or issue, you get to hear diverse opinions and you get to hear them debated in real time. That's a good thing.
Yeah, so for example, I don't mind having the Israelis on at all. And oftentimes I'll take on 2 or 3 of them at the same time, right?
Same, yeah.
That's because we crush Israeli propagandists for a living. Can't wait, bring me more, okay? You know why we're so confident? Because we know we're right. And we can prove it, and we have proven it over and over again until Ben Shapiro picked up his little skirt and ran away. Oh no, here comes Jake and Dave Smith. I gotta run away. What happened? I thought you were a master debater. Remember when he used to have his workers put out all those edited things from debates and be like, oh yeah, he's so cool and he crushed you. All right, where you at, bitch? Where you at?
Actually, to Piers Morgan's credit, he did call Ben Shapiro out on that. Because remember, Ben Shapiro's whole thing here is, oh, Piers Morgan Uncensored is like the Jerry Springer of political media. Okay, but you're the one who popularized those Ben Shapiro destroys left winger, Ben Shapiro crushes. I mean, you engage in that.
Yeah.
Like that blood sport culture, you engage in that. Anyway, now one of the issues that Piers Morgan had with Ben Shapiro's commentary here is the fact that, Ben Shapiro says, I don't go on Piers Morgan's show anymore because he has Nazi and Nazi adjacent guests on. And he did give some examples, and he said that, Nick Fuentes didn't get any pushback from Piers Morgan, which is nonsense. Piers Morgan actually ended up backfiring. He attempted to do pushback. He did push back actually, and none of it really landed. But nonetheless, here is Morgan expressing how unhappy he is with Ben Shapiro's dishonest reflection of that interview.
I just stopped appearing on his show. Why? Well, honestly, he kept bringing on actual Nazis and the Nazi adjacent, and then treated them all too often as voices worthy of a large audience. Like, for example, these people.
I believe that Jewish supremacy is the greatest threat to America. And I think it's the greatest threat to the world today. I truly believe that.
You think Hitler was very cool?
Yes.
And it's outrageously disingenuous that the clips he showed did not include the parts of those interviews where I called out every single one of them about things I didn't agree with. His montage of the same interviews could have looked like this.
You sound like a Nazi.
I mean, why do you say that?
That's literally what Nazis would have said in World War II. You think if half your family had been wiped out by very cool Hitler, you'd still think he was very cool? Or would you think that actually he was a despicable monster who murdered 12 million people?
So obviously Piers Morgan does push back, this whole, it's just, Jake, it's so wild. Like this whole debate about platforming coming from Ben Shapiro, who built a career as a free speech warrior after left-wing students would protest his appearances on college campuses.
Yeah, so I mean, look, let's address all the hypocrisies. First of all, I'm all about freedom of speech. I'm totally against cancel culture. Candace Owens, you disagree with me? Fired. Brett Cooper, you disagree with me slightly? Fired. Okay. Anyone else who wants to say anything against Israel? Fired. Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, you're against cancel culture. The guy who's literally saying we should cancel the guests on Piers Morgan, that Piers should be forced to cancel them, and if he doesn't, Piers should be canceled. But he's against cancel culture? Nah, that was a gimmick, guys. Total utter gimmick. And he's a giant liar, because I watched that interview that Piers Morgan and Nick Fuentes had, and Piers Morgan, all he did was push back. He attacked Fuentes from minute one to the very last minute. Now, Anna and I think that he didn't do it that effectively. I would wish he would have been more effective with it, but did he push back? Absolutely. All he did was push back. So Shapiro is just such a giant liar, and you should never trust anything he says, because you could see with your own eyes. You could watch that interview that Piers did with Fuentes, and you'll know with absolute certainty that Shapiro's a liar. And then, Anna, they're one-trick ponies, right? The whole anti-Semite thing, and we cancel you. So, and what's the whole point of calling people an anti-Semite? Is so that you remove them from the national conversation, so that every time someone criticizes Israel, anti-Semite, remove, anti-Semite, remove. So until there are no voices against Israel, and only voices saying, of course, we should give them hundreds of billions of dollars. Of course, we should go to war for them. Of course, we should pay trillions of dollars for those wars. And so now anti-Semite, that's another reason why they hate Dave Smith, because anti-Semite doesn't work with him because he's Jewish. And that drives them crazy. And same thing with Jeffrey Sachs and Glenn Greenwald and all these amazing fighters for peace and decency who are Jewish Americans, right? So since anti-Semite was getting under everyone's nerve, they then switched to Jew hater, right? Everybody's a Jew hater. All of America's Jew haters because they won't do what Israel says. And that played even poorer. People hated that. So now they finally switched to America hater. Why? Because Israel pushed you into this war, and technically you're in the war, so that's it. Anyone who opposes Israel's war, America hater. But again, bad news for them. That crap used to fly back during the Iraq war, and because you had traditional media 100% on their side. Now, with online media kicking traditional media's ass, and all of our audience is getting larger and larger while Ben's gets smaller and smaller, by the end, it's just gonna be Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, and Mark Levin in a room together going, we canceled everybody, we canceled them all. And only 3 of them left in the room, okay? So keep trying to cancel, brothers and sisters. You only grow weaker and smaller as you go.
Okay, so in the aftermath of all of this, Megyn Kelly reposted Piers Morgan's response to Ben Shapiro on X. And in response to that, here's what Dave Rubin wrote. Pretty sure Megyn got some of the Botox in her brain. and Piers would sell his mother to a jihadist for a click. Okay, I'm just gonna move on. In response, Morgan stated, wow, 4 months ago, I drove out to do Rubin's podcast at his home in Miami as a personal favor because he's done my show many times. I thought we were friends. Big mistake. He's not friends with anyone. He's a snake, nonetheless. How wrong could I be? What a treacherous little weasel. Indeed he is, Mr. Morgan. Being Netanyahu's useful idiot has sent him and Shapiro nuts. Cenk weighed in, said, told ya. And said that the reason Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro turned on you is the same reason Miriam Adelson and Larry Ellison supported Bill Clinton before they supported Donald Trump. Because Israel First doesn't care about anything but Israel. They have no friends or allegiances other than Israel. Morgan also announced that Rubin would also no longer be welcome on his show. Dave Rubin, like, it's not just that he's a useful idiot and whatever. He doesn't really add anything to any show. So
yeah, they're gonna have to change that.
Believe me.
Yeah. Sorry, they're gonna have to change that term because others are useful idiots. Dave's kind of a useless idiot.
Yeah, he is a useless idiot. You're right about that.
You know the hardest part of starting TYT? It wasn't being on camera. I'm pretty sexy, so that was easy. And it wasn't trying to figure out a new thing called YouTube, that was fun. It was realizing I had to wear every single hat. Writer, producer, marketing department, it was overwhelming. I felt like I was stranded on an island. When you're starting a business, that to-do list can overrun your life. You need a partner, not just any partner, you need Shopify. That's who we chose. Think about it, you need a beautiful online store? Boom, Shopify's got hundreds of ready-to-use templates that match your brand style. You need to find customers? They make it easy to run email and social media campaigns wherever people are scrolling. And what about managing inventory, processing returns, and international shipping? Shopify is your commerce expert. They handle the world-class logistics so you don't have to. Everything from payments to analytics is in one place. No more jumping between platforms. It simplifies your life so you can focus on what you actually started the business to do. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/TYT. Go to shopify.com/TYT. That's shopify.com/TYT. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.